Hi there, I'm Ron Calcutt. Over the past 18 months or so, Quintrex Australia has been doing a lot of market research, talking to people who own boats, people who are thinking of buying boats, and people who'd love to own a boat but don't feel confident about using one. Over the next 15 minutes or so, this little video is going to take you through launching, retrieving, backing trailers and driving boats. By the time we get to the end of it, you should know everything you need to know to go out and enjoy boating. You'll notice when I stopped the car there, I did so with the boat and car lined up with the launching ramp. So I'm going to be able to go straight back down here in a straight line, and that's an important start for launching a boat. Now, it's also very important to have the right trailer under your boat, and I'll show you what I mean now. There are two basic types of trailer in common use today. One is the multi-roller trailer, where the side of the boat is supported by a number of rollers. And the other one is a trailer like this, which we call a keel roller trailer, in which the weight of the boat is supported on those keel rollers, and you have the stabilising bars here just to keep the trailer upright. Now, the reason that this is the best kind of trailer for an aluminium boat is that the strongest part of an alloy boat is the keel. So on a trailer like this, all of the weight of the boat is being supported on the strongest part of the boat. Now, the basic design for this trailer has been around for years. Keel rollers and supports to hold the boat in place. The big difference these days is this coating material on the supports. Polyethylene and other high-tech materials these days are as hard as steel, but it's an extremely slippery material, just like your non-skid fry pan where things slide around in the pan. The other big thing that makes a difference here is the fact that these are not fixed. Everything moves. So as the hull comes across and it works across different shapes on the bottom of the boat, the trailer adjusts itself to the shape of the boat. It's good stuff. It's a good idea to have a checklist that you go through every time before you launch the boat. Number one on my list is the painter, my lead to get the boat on and off the trailer. Number two is the safety chain. We remove that. Now we go down to the back of the boat. Point number three, if you've got them on, is to remove tie downs or the boat's not going to go anywhere when you try to launch. We go around the back. Most important point of all, make sure the bungs are in the boat or it'll sink when you launch it. And finally, we just tilt the motor up like this, so it's out of the way if there are some rocks or shallows at the back of the launching ramp. You won't ding your prop. Okay, let's launch the boat. Okay, here we go back down the ramp. Now we've got ourselves away to a good start by lining the car and the boat up with the ramp in the first place. Now all we've got to do is keep it going in a straight line. I always use the rear vision mirror to do this, and I establish a distance between the side of the ramp and that right-hand mudguard, and as long as I continue to keep that distance the same, I don't have to worry about the other side of the boat because I know it's okay. I just focus on this one side. And you do everything slowly. Look, I can talk to the camera and do this at the same time. Slowly is the key, because if I get a little offline when I'm going slowly, the boat only goes a little way offline and it's easy to correct. You see, just very, very small movements of the steering wheel does the trick. Now that the boat's on the downslope, I won't use the accelerator anymore. I'm just going to let the weight of the boat pull the car back down the ramp, and that way it'll stay in a straight line. If you do foul up and you get your boat crossed up a little bit, don't go on with it and try and correct it. You'll just get into a lot of trouble. The thing to do, put it in a forward gear, go forward until you straighten the rig up, and take another go at it. Now I have to do that all the time. It doesn't matter how much practice you have, you'll still foul up every now and then, so don't feel bad about it if you do it. Here we go, all the way down this time. There we are, just about perfect. As you know, practice makes perfect, and you need to practice this, but this isn't the place to do it. Where you want to practice is in the supermarket parking lot at night or very early in the morning when there's nobody around, and you can use the way that parking spaces are marked out to pretend it's a launching ramp. You can spend hours there until you get it right. Now, come down here, I want to show you something else. You'll notice that I've driven this trailer down until the wheels are completely submerged. A lot of people don't like to do that, but you must have the back of the boat level with the water, or it's just going to make it too hard to get off the trailer. Now, what I'm going to show you now is how to drive a boat off a trailer. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start the boat up, put it in a forward gear, and put some pressure on the winch post so that the boat will hold itself on the trailer when I undo the shackle. Okay. Now you can see how the boat's held itself in place there. I'm just going to ease off the throttle. And there we go. A little bit of reverse. Easy. Now we're on a nice, even sloping ramp here, and it's going to be easy to launch this boat manually. But if we were on a very steep sort of a ramp, the problem we're going to have is that the full weight of the boat will always be on this strap. So when we've unwound it a little, we're not going to be able to get that hook undone. So here's a little trick. You take the painter, take a couple of turns around the trailer post, and we're going to support the weight of the boat with this little rope here. And here we go. So we unwind, you can see the tension's on that strap now, but when we get down to there, all the tension's on the rope. So we undo our hook, remove it, and now we can just release the tension on this rope, and away slides our boat. And you could keep a turn around that and use that to control the descent if you're on a very steep ramp. No problem at all, there she goes. And you can see how it's very handy to have a nice long length of rope, because you can let your boat go right out there clear of the trailer and then lead it back to you. There's nothing to it, nothing to it. There we go. In a lot of ways a boat is like a car, particularly a boat like this one. You have a steering wheel at the front and you've got an accelerator. The big difference between a boat and a car is that you have to trim a boat. A car sits on four wheels on a hard road and it doesn't move around very much. But a boat has a shaped bottom and it sits in a liquid. So therefore, you move weight around inside your boat and your boat moves. Now, trim is a very important word to take on board now. And there are two kinds of trim we look at with a boat. One is the sort of trim we achieve by moving weight around in the boat. So if we've got everybody sitting on this side of the boat, it's going to be like that. If we even the load up, our boat's going to sit nice and flat on the water and it'll run a lot better. The other kind of trim is what we call fore and aft trim. And this has to do with the angle of the nose of the boat to the water. And this is very important when you're running, and I'll show you later what this does. But for the time being, there are two kinds of trim. You have electric trim that you can operate off your throttle up the front there, and you have manual trim. Now, with a manual motor, you've got to set your trim up before you start, and where you set it is where you've got it. And I'll show you how to do this. All right, now with a manual trim motor, we determine the angle of the motor leg to the back of the boat by making an adjustment here. As you can see, there are a number of holes there, and they all represent the different positions at which you can set the motor. Very simple business to change the angle of the leg of the motor. Just take that out and we put it in another slot. Now, that may not be ideal for this particular boat. And it's one of those things that you just have to fiddle around with, and you'll find exactly the right position for your particular boat and the load you carry in it. But don't be afraid to experiment. With a boat, try everything. You can't hurt it, and you'll learn a lot about your boat. Okay, now we're in a boat that has electric trim and tilt and start. So we'll start our boat up just like you'd start your motor car. Here we go. Now when we start off, when a boat's not moving forward, it is a displacement hull. In other words, it sinks down into the water and it displaces water. It's not a very efficient way for a boat to move. This is a planing hull, so as I apply the power, the boat's actually going to climb out of a hole, then drop down and sit on top of the water. When it's on top of the water, there's very little friction on the hull and the hull runs very efficiently. Okay, now, let's start off and we'll just do that. Here we go, a little bit of power, and I've got the motor trimmed in at the moment. I'll show you how that works in a minute. Here we go. Now, as this boat's moving along, I can adjust that angle. If I don't like the way this boat's sitting on the water, I can trim the engine in like that, or I can trim it back up. You'll reach a point where the boat feels right. You'll feel the hull free up and begin to run smoothly. Every hull is different, and your own boat will react differently to changes in weight. So depending on the load you've got in the boat, you may have to trim your boat a little differently. Now, just to go back to that idea of getting out of the hole again, all hulls are different. Every boat is different. And to get out of the hole with most boats, you'll trim your motor right in, because when you trim the motor in, you hold the nose of the boat down. And that makes it easy for it to climb out of the hole with a nice flat attitude. If you trim your motor out to get out of the hole, your boat will climb out like that, and you don't really want that. But they're all different, and you've just got to fiddle and experiment until you find the right trim for your boat. So here we go, I've got it trimmed right in now, and we're going to do a climb out of the hole nice and flat. Here we go. There we are up on the plane. Now, I've still got that engine trimmed in. One of the things that happens if I leave it there is that the steering will turn the boat around if I take my hands off the wheel. Now that tells me that I don't have this boat correctly trimmed for planing. So what I do, I'll trim it up a little bit at a time until that torque goes off the wheel. Now this is about perfectly trimmed now. I can let go of this boat and it'll go in a straight line all day. I know the boat is perfectly trimmed, no worries. Now I talked about brakes on a boat before, and a boat has two kinds of brakes. One is friction on the hull from the water, and I'll show you the other one later. But right now I've got this boat sitting up very high on the water and there's very little friction on it. But the minute I reduce power on the throttle, the boat starts to sink, water friction increases, and it brings us to a stop. If I want it to stop a lot faster, I just simply drop the power straight off, and this boat had stopped in a surprisingly short space of time. Now the other way of stopping a boat is the one you use when you're approaching a jetty, or maybe you're coming up alongside another boat. Unlike a motor car, you can throw a boat into reverse gear while you're moving along. Don't do it in your car. But here we go, we're creeping up to the jetty like this now. I just slip the boat out of gear to a neutral position, then into reverse, and I stop dead, right on the spot. Now that's how you manoeuvre when you're moving in close to another boat or coming to a jetty, and you're in close quarters and you've got to be very precise. Just always go slowly. That is always the key. Be going slowly in the first place, and then you can just stop the boat dead using reverse gear like that. Now, another interesting thing to tell you about when you're approaching a jetty or another boat, and you need to be very precise. You've made your approach and you're coming in alongside the jetty and you've slowed down, right down. When you turn an outboard at very slow speeds, the way it steers the boat is to actually push the back of the boat to either side. So if we're curving into a jetty like this, we're losing speed. As we're nearly alongside the jetty, if we take a full lock on the steering wheel and just bump a little bit of pressure on, the back of the boat goes straight across to the jetty. And there's another thing worth knowing about there too. And this is, as you're coming up, lining up, and you're almost alongside the jetty, it can be a metre, say, off from the jetty. If you do the same thing, but take the opposite lock and hit reverse, the back of your boat will go straight across to the jetty and your boat will stop. Now that's something I can't really show you. Try it for yourself and you'll be surprised how professional you are at getting alongside a jetty without hitting your boat. You have a little safety device built in here if we're talking about throwing the boat into reverse gear, in that you need to push a release button to push it into gear. So I'll take it out. When we go to neutral, hear that? Click, clunk. There we are, it's in neutral. So you can't accidentally bang it back into reverse. You have to lift the release, then you can go into reverse. And the same thing with forward gear. Goes into neutral, lift the release, and forward. And something I want you to keep in mind. In your motor car, it doesn't matter when you take off because everybody's seated. In a boat, people don't have that support at their back. So you must get into the habit every time. Before you start off, you check your boat and make sure everybody is safe and secure, and away you go. Otherwise you can have a nasty accident, and you really don't want to do that. Now I'm going to drive the boat back onto the trailer, and once again, slowly is the key. And I'm also going to intentionally come in here a bit crooked so you can see how those supports at the back trap the bow and force the boat to come up straight. There we go. It's nice and slow, and I'm going to let the stem hit the back of the trailer there. And we'll just sit here for a sec, and you can see that the boat has just come round and straightened itself up. I'll put a little bit of pressure on the throttle. Up we go. Up we go. Now the trick now is to have just enough forward movement to stop you rolling back off the trailer, which I think I've got there. Now I'm going to hop out and connect the strap to the boat, and we're in business. Okay, all I have to do now is come up here and hook the hook on. A few turns of the handle, and that's all there is to it. I just go back and turn my motor off. There you go, there's a simple one-man retrieve. You don't even have to work the winch very much. Okay, now I'm using the painter to drag the boat into the back of the trailer there, and you'll see that once again those little side supports catch the boat, lead it onto the front roller, and it's very, very easy to line up. Put on my hook. Once again, the trusty painter is a very handy little bit of gear in that it can keep the boat in place until you take up the tension on this strap. Just let it come around a little bit more. There we go. Boat lines itself up, no problems at all. And you can see that I'm about 2/10 of a matchstick. I'm not a very strong fellow, but I'm obviously not having very much trouble winding this boat up onto this trailer. And that's what good boating's all about. See, not even puffed. Okay, that's all there is to it. It's simple. You can't get anything much easier than that. The things you want to remember, backing your trailer slowly, always slowly, and you can't go wrong. Driving your boat, experiment, try everything. Fiddle with your trim, every part of your boat, move the load around, and in no time at all you'll be an expert driver. The nice thing about owning an aluminium boat is when I get it home, all I'm going to have to do is hose it down, let it dry, put it in the garage and forget it. Enjoy your boating.